Alejandro Escudé reads from his collection, My Earthbound Eye, winner of the 2012 Sacramento Poetry Center Book Contest.
My neighbor across the street, a bone-thin man, suffering from a terminal disease, shaves his beard off, leaving only a mustache. Every night, he warms up his Harley in the garage for his 15-minute ride. I imagine him motoring to the edge of death, which looks like the seashore, but sharper. Like the blade my toddler took to his throat and which I snatched back in horror. Returning, he lets the bike's motor run late into the night. I lie in bed, no longer perturbed by the popping of the idling pistons that abruptly shut down, leaving only the not-quite silence of a city night. Then for weeks, no engine sound. His wife sells the bike. You'll find me here on the Isle of Books, looking for the poem that begins like a searchlight through the fog. I will be standing naked, a child of the wind, transparent, reflecting the green shores of the equatorial Pacific. Though you will think despair has got me by the narrowness of my cheeks, the shadows which are my eyes, and the tattered hat that covers my receding hairline, an inch it seems, year after year, I will be surprisingly calm. A songbird using my heart for a swing. I should have known, you will say. Where else but here? And this is called After the Country's Collapse. This is an economic collapse that Argentina suffered during that time, and my father lost his business, and we had to come to the United States. So this is what I remember from there, from that time. My father held his head with both his hands. We're going to California, Mother said. Her eyes were dying lanterns, grown too bright before going out. We have to leave. We have no choice. Father added in a voice I'd never heard before, but would soon know. Then I cried for my backyard eucalyptus. I knew we couldn't take the tree with us, so I put it in a tier small enough to fly within the belly of that great orange plain. I remember palms, my first chewing gum, and the sound of English like cracking nuts. But Spanish, my Spanish, was a breeze on a dusty road. I hugged a strange family. The accordion begins nostalgic staccato for Buenos Aires. It's Gardel's tango, Father's favorite, Mano a Mano. The violins, the crippling piano, a story of lost love and solitude. Father shakes and sings in tears, recalling through some interlude the old city's subway stops. The years, he says, to think you were this big. An immigrant's unsolvable question in his eye, do I belong to this? He smiles, makes a conductor's gesture, prepares his chest, shakes his fist. Almost, and fin, the tango speeds to its declarative end and bleeds. As I sit in the waiting room, I hear the drill's muffled infant-like cry from behind the door. I make notes to pass the time. Go to the bank, change the PIN number to something you'll remember. Don't smoke. Don't have more than 3 drinks at parties. The Arm & Hammer Museum is free on Thursdays. Don't stay up too late, even if you're on vacation. Get your sleep. Last week, the mechanic told me about a friend of his who mines for opal in Nevada. Weekends, he drives to the mine, pays a digging fee, and drills for the precious black stone. He makes necklaces and bracelets and sells them online. I imagined the mechanic's friend drilling for opal in my father's mouth, striking off a lustrous piece, then holding it up with big cartoon eyes. Then I was the friend, and I was holding up the stone. The drill's cry is replaced by father's Novocaine voice. The dentist walks out with my dad and talks to me as if my father is senile. and I'm already his caregiver. He's not allowed to smoke for at least a few hours. Father gives me a pained smile. You can have some soup for dinner, says the dentist, then turns back to me. He should rinse his mouth with salt water, take 4 Advil for the pain. He shows my father 4 fingers. Dad walks out of the office numb and disoriented. On the way home, he can barely speak, but we talk anyway as he puffs on one of his Marlboro lights. Miedo a nada in Spanish means fear of nothing. This is a phrase my mother likes to say. I've become enamored with my hands. They are soft and muscular. I break them and they come back, only slower. I watch them correct student papers, and they're as assured as ever, more assured than my soul, who still ponders fears for its existence. When I fret about something, my hands gaze up at me like 2 loving dogs. Then they go about the business of doing. My hands know about the brain, but they only nod to it, then do what it orders them to do. Like soldiers, they don't question, though they have their own feelings, their own opinions. My hands are bronze, Argentinian like mother, who taught me only last week the phrase miedo a nada, fear nothing. As she and I strolled the beachside park along the yachts of Marina del Rey. It wasn't advice, only a way to punctuate. Miedo a nada, fear nothing. A point I was stressing about difficult family, co-workers, students, friends. She didn't say it, miedo a nada, like a mother would, but more like an old confidant. She didn't say it in her hurried breath, as she might have when I, rag and a bottle of pledge in my young hands, watched her propel someone else's soaked mop, empty their vacuum, so many years, turning her face to cough up the dust. Miedo a nada. The 2 of us just strolling. Miedo a nada. Along those beautiful yachts, mahogany handrails, crisp white sails, one perhaps even owned by the people she worked for. Miedo a nada. Then we walked in quiet, side by side, long enough for me to realize Mother and I, miedo a nada, were walking side by side. These days, up by 5, I feed our baby boy while my wife sleeps. On the early morning news, astronauts float somewhere between the Earth and all that space. I imagine one pressing a red trigger, igniting toward a nebulous arc of blue, peering below and seeing those swirls of cloud, 2 or 3 different oceans and continents, pinpoint lights, discernible cities, watching as the sun erupts on the horizon. He puts up a big white marshmallow hand to check the time, then squirms around to loop back to the ship parked there like an RV at a rest stop. The universe beyond, an impenetrable forest, a vast pool of onyx. Down here on the pearly earth is a new boy who wasn't here only weeks before. I watch his big eyes seek mine as he suckles his bottle and think, our mysteries are your mysteries now. A grasshopper landed on my windshield as I drove Friday afternoon, like picking up a hitchhiker. Chameleon green, undeterred by speed, he cleansed his ends like a cat as I drove. I parked so he could saunter up to my roof and fly off. Afterward, I picked up my son at a park where I watched him play with older kids. One girl held his hand as they ran, playing an easy game of hide-and-go-seek. Seeing me, he sat and began to cry. The girl sat with him and stroked his hair. Then I carried him to the car. Walking around Bethel with you, the Inuit children following us, our dog bounding over tundra, salmon berries. There's a softness beneath desire that's hard to get to. And yet, that's the essence. In the bright Alaskan night, you could hear the silence, an audible void, which was the sound of your own soul, a kind of low static that did not merge well. I yelled at you once or twice. There were no curtains, so mornings we made love on the floor, our feet against the door. Outside, it was always gray, but it was the gray joy of Alaska. Muddy boots and the chained-up sled dogs everywhere, dogs with iceberg eyes. And the one raven who followed us down the road, just another person we met. The rain was a light mist. The salmon leapt out to meet my hook, and the wildman who took us out laughed out loud when I couldn't beat the fish. There's a softness beneath desire that's hard to get to. There's an Alaska in me now. You did that to me. You held me like I would one day hold our baby daughter as she wailed at night. I wailed in Alaska. I trembled. I picked blueberries. We cooked salmon in our thermals. The mists gathered. The sled dogs howled, and the raven perched where the raven always perched, waiting for more. This last poem is called Free, and it culminates the book. And it's about a real experience I had, which is really rare in LA, where you get something for free. So I wandered ticketless into the Modern Art Museum. The entrance guard did not stop me. Half hour before it opened, and only after 2 rooms of abstract expressionists, moments after Tanguy, before Frank Stella, and Motherwell's monumental Elegy to the Spanish Republic. Black alien splotches shaped like the helmets of Lorca's killers. Did I realize I was alone and shouldn't be? No guards, not even one other person ruminating over Hoffman, staring up at Calder's mobile. Then breaking from the dream in silence, privileged to mastery under dim lights, I decided to steal one more high-ceilinged room, imagining myself an experienced art thief, the torso-sized Pollock under my raincoat, an out-of-character stasis allowing me to linger, the threats of the partitioned planet kept at bay by the white omnipresence of the walls and the God of the air-conditioned halls. I pocketed Picasso's Head of a Woman, the horrific bronze ridges, her downcast droop. Then I took one other of a blue man sundered by a red demon man on a dark-stained background, growing bolder by the minute until I nearly felt afraid and walked back toward the entrance where a group of name-tagged specialists rushed in, covered me as the sliding doors slid closed. Like an agent of the Cold War, I stole 10 minutes alone in that cathedral or home. As when I wandered into the rift between spaces, me, the only child, under the kitchen table, looking up my mother's skirt, the board that spelled messages from the dead, watching the beautiful one at the party, her parted lips spin the twinkling bottle. I sat pleased at one of the cafe tables and watched the multitudes queue, my stolen works under my coat, my big white rooms. Thank you.